So Monty, here at Gardeners World Live, we're sitting in the Best in Show garden, and I think it really shows how our gardens have evolved in the way that we use our gardens. There's something here about the way we live now, and I think, what do you think? Gardens are changing, I think.
Well, I think the key is the word use, because over the course of the last year or two, people have been forced to use their gardens in ways they haven't perhaps done so for a while. Gardeners World Live is typical, along with Gardeners World programme, along with the last 30, 40 years of gardening programmes and shows. It's for gardeners, and it's about horticulture, and it's about, exceptional plants and planting techniques. And the idea is this is something that if you're interested in, you do, and if you're not interested in, you probably won't be there. But what the last year or two has changed, and I think this is a big change, is that if you have access to a garden of any kind whatsoever, it's a space you live in.
Yeah.
You sit in, you watch things, you might try growing a bit of this and that. You probably don't know what you're doing, but you try. You buy some seed, you buy a plant, and you gradually incorporate it into your life. So I think people, initially through lockdown, then first lockdown, that glorious spring.
Oh, and didn't the weather help us?
This incredible weather of 2020, and people realised that they could spend time in their gardens, and they didn't have to mow the lawn, they didn't have to do things, they just had to live. And the whole nature of lockdown was that the world slowed right down. It stopped. And people who went out to work spent time with their children, and husbands and partners and daughters and mothers all spent time together. And a lot of that happened in a garden. And I think what this garden is doing is reflecting that.
And I think there has been such uncertainty, but in the garden there is certainty. Things will grow. They may not grow as you expect them, but the garden is there, and the seasons always change. And they always turn and they come around again. And I think gardening gave us a certainty.
It was a rhythm. It was a rhythm and a pace of life that felt... It was a rich scene that transcended the sort of vagaries of life. And as you say, the uncertainties, the calamities, and the surprises that were being sprung on us. And that deep, slow rhythm is something that we all can attune to. It's obviously, the seasons, it's even day and night. It's the weather, is that... And gardeners, I think, take that for granted. We don't give it enough credit. Yeah. It's absolutely key to our enjoyment of the garden.
And you say day and night, you're absolutely right, because I think people's use of their gardens extended. Suddenly when we could bring people into the garden, that was where we celebrated with them, that's where we entertained with them, that's where we met them. We extended into the evening. So now I think there's a more awareness of how to use your gardens in the evening and just sit out and enjoy at night.
In very practical terms, we have not at home socialised indoors at all. All our socialising, such as it is in its very limited way, has been in the garden. Yeah. If we've had people round, we've eaten outside. Yeah. For COVID reasons. And actually, it's great. It's lovely. Yeah. We sit in the garden and eat and do things. And I think that, it's perfectly possible to do something for the right thing for the wrong reason. You didn't want to choose that to be the case, but actually it's worked out very well. And how we take this into the future, I think, is what this garden is addressing, because what you have is quite complicated, subtle, clever planting. This is not just some plants bunged in because they look nice. Sure. This is evolving moods, and it's balancing and textures and colours, and it shows you can do that with a fire pit, with a seat, with water and sound and somewhere to eat and all that thing. These are not mutually exclusive. The garden isn't somewhere that happens there and the sort of patio there. It's all one.
So I think what we've got here is this great sense of enclosure, and I think that's important in a garden.
It is, and in fact I'd take that one step further. I'd say that I think, if at all possible, every garden should have somewhere that feels really private. That is not overlooked. Ideally, you can't hear your neighbour's conversation and they can't hear yours. Yeah. It might just be one little seat in a corner where you wouldn't particularly want it, but you have to go with that. And if you can create that sense of privacy, then you relax. And if you relax, it becomes personal and intimate and private, just as it does in your house. And I think if you can create the garden and the house complement each other with a bit of privacy, with a bit of openness, with a bit of light, rather than saying the garden is the outdoors, and only outdoor things happen there, and indoors is indoors, and is then that extends the range of how you use a garden, how we view a garden, and actually what we grow in the garden.
And that flow between inside and outside just becomes seamless, and all the richer for it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Monty, for sharing your thoughts.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's always, it's so nice to be back at Gardener's World Live, back in the real world, not viewing it just from my garden and down a lens. It's great to be here.
Isn't it?